Jurassic World, Junior Novel, read by James Hawkins, edited by Stephen Hurrell. A novelisation by David Lumen, based on the story by Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver, and the screenplay by Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver, and Derek Connolly and Colin Trevorrow, and characters created by Michael Crichton. Disclaimer: we do not own the rights to this story. Chapter 1. Gray Mitchell was in his bedroom, clicking through 3D images of his red plastic Viewmaster. His parents had given him 3 discs with dinosaur pictures for his 5th birthday. That meant he'd been looking at these same pictures for 6 years. In kid years, that made these discs prehistoric, but he still liked them. He also liked his model of the 2 dinosaurs fighting on a volcanic island, and his dinosaur posters, and his books about dinosaurs. In fact, Gray liked anything to do with dinosaurs. Well, not liked, loved. And now he was finally going to get to see some real ones. Real live, moving, chomping, stomping dinosaurs. He wanted to be ready. He wanted to remember everything he knew about the dinosaurs when he finally got to meet them face to face. "Gray," his mum asked, opening his door. "Let's move. Why are you looking at those now, honey? Grab your backpack, the flight's in 2 hours. He kept peering into his Viewmaster. Dane County Airport is 38 minutes away, 60 with traffic. Gray was very good with numbers. Dane County Airport served Gray's hometown of Madison, Wisconsin. There weren't a lot of live dinosaurs in Wisconsin. In fact, there were none. Nada. Zilch. "How many minutes to get your little butt in the van?" his mum asked. "Move, kiddo." Gray put the Viewmaster in an outer pocket of his backpack, pulled on the pack and followed his mum out to the minivan parked in the driveway. His dad was waiting in the driver's seat. "Zach!" he called out to the car window. "Venomous!" Zach, Gray's 16-year-old brother, was standing in the yard, touching his forehead to his girlfriend's forehead. She was in love with Zach. Zach liked her, but wasn't really sure if he loved her. "Call me every day," his girlfriend said, close to tears. "And text me pictures so I don't forget what you look like." "I'll only be gone a week," Zach said sheepishly. His dad called from the car again. "Zach, you're not being sent off to war here." At the same moment that Zach's girlfriend said, "I love you," Zach said, I'll see you later, bye." He climbed into the back seat of the minivan, watching his girlfriend wave. She was trying not to cry, but it looked as if though she was going to anyway. Zach's mum turned around and said, "I know it hurts, sweetheart." But his dad didn't believe Zach's relationship with his girlfriend was serious. Are you going to be okay?" he asked, teasing. Zach blew out a big breath. He couldn't decide which was more annoying, his dad's teasing or his mum's sympathy. He stuck in his earbuds, retreating into his music. His mum glared at his dad as he started the car and began the trip to the airport. Just outside the security checkpoint, the 2 brothers said goodbye to their parents. Gray's mum knelt to hug him as he adjusted his waterproof fanny pack. It was filled with everything he thought he might need for the adventure, with real dinosaurs. "Passengers must be at the gate 30 minutes before departure," he said. Gray hated being late, and there was no way he was going to miss this plane. "I know, honey," Mum said. She stood up, turned to Zach, and took his face in their hands. "Watch your brother," she instructed, "and answer your phone. I didn't turn on international roaming so you could snap talk, whatever you call it." Their dad put his hand on Zach's shoulder. "Listen to your mother," he said, in a mock seriousness. Zach nodded his head and rolled his eyes at the same time. Then the boys said goodbye and hurried through the security. Their mum watched them disappear into the crowd. "I love you," she called after them. "Did you call your sister?" Dad asked her. Mum nodded. "Yes, but my call went straight to voicemail. She never answers." "It'll be fine," Dad reassured her. "She handles 20,000 people a day. She can handle 2 more. Hours later, the plane landed in Costa Rica. As the 2 brothers got off the plane, they saw signs directing them to the ferry of Isla Nublar. As they shuffled up the gangway to the ferry with the other tourists, Gray asked, How big is the island?" Zach shrugged. He really had no idea, but he wasn't going to admit that to his little brother. Big. But how many pounds? Gray asked. Zack made a face. That doesn't make any sense. Once they were on the sleek ferry, it sped across the ocean waves towards Isla Nublar. Gray was so excited. He was bouncing. Zack noticed a cute teenage girl and put a little distance between himself and his brother. Gray noticed, but didn't stop bouncing. In the distance, the island rose out of the sea. It had mountains that looked as though they might have once been volcanoes, and it was green, covered in dense jungle. But Isla Nublar had much more than just mountains and jungle. It was the home to the number of one tourist destination in the world, where visitors could experience the thrill of witnessing living and breathing dinosaurs. And even though he would never admit it, Zack was almost as excited as Gray was to be on this trip. When the ferry reached the island, Zack and Gray made their way off of the boat with a crowd of tourists. They scanned the landing, looking for their aunt. She wasn't there. Instead, her assistant Zara, a young woman in her 20s, stood waiting for them, holding up a tablet that read Zack and Gray Mitchell. "Where's Aunt Claire?" Gray asked his brother. Zack shrugged. They ambled towards Zara, who introduced herself and led them onto the monorail. Gray made his way down the aisle, gently squeezing between people to reach the front. The front of the monorail was glass, so whoever stood there saw everything first. Gray reached the front window, pressed his hands to the glass, and watched as the monorail swooshed along on its elevated rails, passing through the jungle foliage on either side. And then he saw it. A huge gate with burning torches loomed in front of them. The top of the gate read Jurassic World. The monorail passed through the open gate, and they were officially inside the park. The monorail took them right to the hotel. Gray raced out into the busy lobby, feeling as though he was about to burst. Zack followed behind his brother with Zara, who pulled both of their rolling bags. Zara spoke in her crisp British accent. "Your aunt arranged to greet you at 1 o'clock. Could your brother slow down?" "He doesn't slow down," Zack explained. From halfway up the escalator, Gray waved back to them. When they reached their hotel room, Gray ran inside. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go!" "Dude," Zack said, trying to calm him down. "She said we have to wait." "I don't want to wait anymore!" Graham ran to the room's balcony and threw open the door. Chapter 2. What a view! The park was beautiful and exciting, everything Gray had hoped it would be. From their balcony he could see the lagoon, the visitor centre, Main Street, everything but dinosaurs. "When can we go see the dinosaurs?" Gray asked Zara. "After you meet up with your Aunt Claire in the visitor centre," Zara said. "At 1 o'clock, as I mentioned." Gray looked disappointed. He wanted to see the dinosaurs now. But at that moment, Gray and Zack's Aunt Claire was busy doing her job. As an important executive of Jurassic World, she was giving a tour to 3 business people she hoped would invest in the park. She led them through sliding glass doors of the genetics lab into a long glass corridor packed with tourists. Here the visitors would watch the park's scientists at work. "No one's impressed by a dinosaur anymore," Claire said, smiling. 20 years ago, de-extinction was right up there with magic. These days, kids look at a stegosaurus like an elephant in the city zoo. Inside the lab, dinosaur eggs warmed in incubators. A baby apatosaurus broke through its shell. Children pressed against the glass wall of the corridor, staring. Despite what Claire had said, they seemed fascinated by the newborn dinosaur. "That doesn't mean asset development is falling behind," Claire continued as she led her 3 visitors through the hall. "Our DNA excavators discover new species every year. But consumers want them bigger, louder, more teeth." She led the trio into the genetics lab. The scientists were drilling into amber to extract ancient DNA, injecting fertilized eggs and loading stacks of frozen embryos into freezers. "The good news," she said, "is that our advances in gene splicing have opened up a whole new frontier. We've learned more from genetics in the past decade than a century of digging up bones." Stopping before a 3D display of a strand of DNA, she asked the business people, "When you say you want to sponsor a new attraction, what do you have in mind?" We want to be thrilled. Claire smiled back. Don't we all? She swiped the touchscreen glass of the display case, and the DNA strand spun around. We think you'll be more than thrilled by our first genetically modified hybrid, the Indominus Rex, a new species of dinosaur built from scratch. And not just built, designed, said the nearby voice. The group turned and saw Dr. Henry Wu, the genetic scientist who worked for Jurassic World, and Jurassic Park before it. He had been there from the beginning. She'll be 50 feet when fully grown, Dr. Wu continued, bigger than the T-Rex. The 3 potential corporate sponsors looked intrigued, but not entirely sold. Claire said, every time we've unveiled a new asset, attendance at the park has spiked. We've gotten global news coverage, celebrity visitors, eyes of the world. She knew that was the sort of thing corporate sponsors love to hear. When will she be ready? The woman in the group asked. Like a predator sensing an easy kill, Claire smiled. She already is. Before she met her nephews at the visitor centre, Claire stopped by the park's control room. A couple dozen employees were watching the park on monitors. Lowry, an engineer, knew she'd be meeting with potential corporate sponsors. Did you close the deal? I did, Claire said. Lowry shook his head. He clearly disapproved. Well, why stop there? I might as well let the other corporations name the dinosaurs, just like all the ballparks. Valerie, a communications operator, answered the phone and said, Your assistants on line 2, Zach and Gray, are here? Tell her I'll be there in 5, Claire said. She noticed Lowry's curious look. My sister's kids. You're related to people, actual human beings, Lowry asked mockingly. Funny, Claire said, not amused, as she walked briskly out of the lab. Chapter 3. Gray ran up the steps of the towering visitor centre. This is it, hurry up! Zack lagged behind. Do, chill. Chilling was not on Gray's agenda. He slipped through the glass doors into the visitor centre and looked up. A skeleton of a T-Rex, petrified in a column of amber, loomed over the hall. The monorail sliced through the open space above. In a 3D display, a character named Mr. DNA explained the park's invisible fence system. With our new invisible fence technology, the dinosaurs can stay in designated zones without bars or cages. An animated Stegosaurus approached a red line. A light around the neck flashed. He stopped and backed off. Gray ran up to the display called A Brief History of Neo-Paleontology. A genetic sequence scrolled by rapidly. Gray said, Cytosine, guanine, adenine and thymine. The same 4 things written in the code for everything that ever lived. Zack caught up with Gray and grabbed him. Hey, if you get lost, I'm not looking for you. Mum and Dad aren't paying me for babysitting. Babysitting? That hurt. Gray? Asked a voice behind them. Is that you? They turned around and saw their Aunt Claire, kneeling, holding her arms out awkwardly. Aunt Claire! Gray said rapidly, running for him for a hug. He stood up and faced Zack. Wow, Zack, the last time I saw you were... She held her hand out, indicating a height even shorter than Gray. That must have been, 3, 4 years ago? 7, Zack said. Close. Ouch, Claire thought. But she smiled and said, So you got your VIP passes? And these are for food? She handed Zack an envelope. Zara is going to take good care of you until I'm done working, okay? Gray was disappointed. You're not coming with us? Claire's phone buzzed. I wish I could, she said, feeling guilty. But tomorrow I can take you into the control room and show you what goes on behind the scenes. That'd be cool, right? Zack and Gray nodded, looking abandoned. Okay, Claire said, smiling. I'll see you tonight at 6? Don't forget that thing, Zara reminded her boss. 8, Claire corrected. What time do you go to sleep, or do you go to sleep at different times? She looked at her phone. The text read, Boss coming. Right, have fun, Claire said to her nephews. She turned to Zara and said, Take care of them, okay? Then walked off quickly, leaving the boys alone with her assistant. On the park's helipad, a helicopter labelled Jurassic World landed. Her hair whipped by the wind from the chopper's blades, Claire ran up to the door in her high-heeled shoes and climbed in. At the controls sat Simon Masrani, the billionaire who was Jurassic World's biggest investor. Next to him was a weary flight instructor. "Claire!" Masrani shouted, greeting her over the noise of the helicopter. "Mr. Masrani," Claire shouted back. You're flying!" "I got my license!" he announced, grinning. The flight instructor shook his head. "Well," Masrani admitted, "almost. I only have to pass 2 more tests. Now show me my new dinosaur." He moved the controls. The helicopter lifted off the pad but spun around in a circle. Claire gripped her strap tightly. Masrani sucked his teeth. Got it! Got it! They soared over the valley. Claire opened a notebook to a drawing of a new dinosaur's home, a still paddock in the jungle. "So the marketing department thought it could offset costs by selling naming rights to the new paddock? I just closed a deal this morning." "Enough about costs," Masrani interrupted. "Don't forget why we built this place, Claire. Jurassic World exists to remind us of how small we really are. How new. You can't put a price on that. Now please, we're flying. Breathe." Claire tried to breathe as the helicopter veered around the curve of the mountaintop. Below, the steel structure stuck out in the jungle, the home of the Indominus Rex. Chapter 4. Masrani landed the helicopter next to a massive open-roof steel paddock still under construction. The flying instructor jumped out the chopper and ran to the nearest bushes. Claire heard retching sounds. "Is he okay?" she asked. "He's just been dramatic," Masrani claimed. The billionaire noticed construction workers adding concrete extensions onto the paddock's massive walls. "We're still building." "We plan to open in May," Claire explained. "But acid containment insisted we build the walls up higher. It's bigger than expected." Masrani smiled. "They had to build it bigger. Crib for me when I was a child. It's a good sign." Claire led Masrani into an area encased in thick glass. Paddock supervisors monitored infrared displays. The red outline of a large animal could be seen on the monitor. "We hit a few speed bumps early on," Claire said. Ed began to anticipate where the food would come from. One of our handlers nearly lost an arm. The other threatened to quit if I couldn't guarantee their safety. Masrani looked more impressed than concerned. "Anticipating where the food would come from. So she's intelligent." "For a dinosaur?" Claire said. Masrani noticed spiderweb cracks in the glass. "And that?" "It tried to break the glass," Claire explained. "I like her spirit," Masrani said, grinning. They watched as workers lowered a full side of beef into the paddock on a chain. Masrani, eager to get his first glimpse of the hybrid dinosaur, waited for the Indominus Rex to take its food. A palm frond rustled. Then, a clawed reptilian hand swept the side of beef into the foliage. As the dinosaur devoured a huge hunk of meat, Masrani got a glimpse of her muscular back. It was greyish-white, with sharp bumps running down the spine. "It's white," Masrani said, delighted. "You never told me it was white." "Think it will scare the kids?" Claire asked. "The kids," Masrani said. "It will get the parents nightmares." "Is that good?" Claire asked, looking doubtful. "It's fantastic," Masrani said, stepping closer to the glass. "People will hate this animal, and they will love it." As if the creature knew it was being discussed, the Indominus Rex whipped its head around, looking over its shoulder directly at Claire and at Masrani. Though its face was partially obscured by trees, its red eyes was clearly visible, staring with malice. Claire took a step back, unnerved by the look in the Indominus's eye. "Can she see us?" Masrani asked. "They say it can sense thermal radiation," Claire said. "Like snakes." The gigantic dinosaur kept staring in their direction, as though it was trying to figure out exactly where they were. "I thought there were 2 of them," Masrani said. There was a sibling in case this one didn't survive infancy. Where's the sibling? She ate it. The skeleton of the butchered side of beef hit the ground, picked clean by the dinosaur. Masrani gulped. So this paddock is quite safe then. We have the best structural engineers in the world, Claire said confidently. So did Hammond. Masrani said, sounding unconvinced. An idea occurred to him. There's an American Navy man on the island, part of a research program. One of my companies is running. Owen Grady? Claire didn't hide the fact that she wasn't thrilled to hear the name. I know who he is. Masrani didn't notice Claire's reaction. His animals often try to escape. They're smart, so he has to be smarter. Masrani eyed Claire, sensing some history between her and Owen Grady. Unfazed, he pressed on with his idea. I want you to bring him in. Let him inspect the paddock. Maybe he can see something we can't. Claire frowned, but when Masrani looked at her, she was nodding. On another part of the island, in the raptor research area, a pig was running for its life. Bam! The pig ran right into a steel wall and it squealed. It had a good reason to squeal. In fact, it had four. 4 velociraptors stared at the pig. They crouched, ready to pounce. But a whistle stopped them cold. They looked up. Owen Grady stood on a metal catwalk above them, holding his hand flat like a military command. The lead velociraptor turned its bright yellow eye back toward the cowering pig and lashed toward it. Another sharp whistle. Hey, watch it, Blue, Owen warned. Blue stepped back into formation with the other 3 velociraptors. The green and black velociraptor next to her screeched up at Owen. Hey, don't give me that, Charlie, Owen told the dinosaur. He closed his hand into a fist, releasing the velociraptors. They disappeared back into the foliage, leaving the pig alone. The other employees whooped and clapped. The lead velociraptor handler, Barry, slapped Owen on the back, congratulating him. You finally did it, man. Only 8 dead pigs ain't bad, right? Owen said. And this pig will love you for the rest of your life, Barry said. As they climbed down from the metal catwalk, a slightly older man in a suit marched up to them. Owen, heck of a job, buddy. Owen was not excited to see Vic Hoskins. Chapter 5. Technically, Hoskins was Owen's boss. He'd hired him to work for InGen, the company in charge of the Velociraptor's research program, but that didn't mean Owen had to like him. Hoskins smiled. I was starting to think I'd hired the wrong guy, but you got those dinosaurs in out of your palm. Owen shrugged. You come on a good day. It's not usually a happy ending. Is that why you've not been signing any reports? We've been busy. Not too busy to cash your paycheck. Owen brushed past Hoskins, but the older man followed him. What do you want, Hoskins? A field test, Hoskins answered. You've proven the velociraptors will respond to commands. Let's put this research on its feet. Owen kept walking. These are wild animals. Trust me, you don't want them out in the field. I just saw a real bond between man and beast. Hoskins cut in front of Owen, blocking him. You're in my way, Owen said. Hoskins didn't budge. Come on, man, you and I. We're dogs of war. The military looking to reduce casualties. Most people would tell you the robots are the future, but nature already gave us the most effective killing machines 75 million years ago, and now we know they can take orders. Barry had caught up with him and heard Hoskins' speech. We finally make progress, and that's the first thing he says, make a weapon? Hoskins held up both his hands. Come on, gents. These velociraptors have millions of years of instincts in the cells, instincts we can program. Their loyalty can't be bought. They will charge right into the enemy's teeth and eat him, belt buckle and all. And what if they decide they want to be in control? Barry asked. Hoskins shrugged. Remind them who's in control. Terminate the rogues and promote the only loyal bloodlines. You come in here, you don't learn anything about them except what you want to know. You made them, and now you think that you own them. Hoskins looked surprised. We do own them. An extinct animal doesn't have any rights. They're not extinct anymore, Owen countered. Exactly, Hoskins agreed. We're sitting on a gold mine, and Masrani using it to stock a petting zoo. You're trying to teach some people some humility, Owen said. He doesn't make weapons.
He faked left, then slipped past Hoskins on the right. Hoskins kept following him, grinning slightly. "You think the 8th richest man in the world is only into oil, telecom and family fun parks?" he said. "Masrani is so diversified he doesn't even know what he owns." Owen realised Hoskins was serious. "How long has InGen been planning to sell this idea to use velociraptors as weapons?" "Since the day we hired you out of the Navy," Hoskins answered. "Those animals could take place of thousands of boots on the ground. How many lives would that save?" Owen closed the metal gate behind him. It locked automatically, leaving Hoskins on the other side, but he kept talking. "Look around you, Owen. Every living thing in this jungle is trying to murder the other. It's the way of Mother Nature refines the pecking order. War is struggle. Struggle breeds greatness. Without that, we end up in places like this charging $7 for a soda." Barry couldn't believe it. "Can you hear yourself when you talk?" "This will happen, with or without you," Hoskins said. "Progress always wins." "Well, maybe progress should lose for a change," Owen said. In the velociraptor enclosure, a young handler dropped a loop around a pig. Suddenly the pig bolted, pulling the handler into the arena. "Man down in the pen," Barry yelled. The squealing pig ran into the bushes, but the raptors made quick work of it. Then they emerged into the open area, walking directly toward the young handler. He scrambled on the ground, backing away from the approaching velociraptors. They moved closer. Chapter 6. 3 armed Jurassic World troopers aimed their electric rifles into the velociraptors, targeting Raptors, Blue, Charlie, Delta, Echo. One of them barked, "Hold your fire! Hold your fire!" Owen raced back into the catwalk and dropped down between the Raptors and the fallen handler. "Owen, no!" Barry cried. The troopers froze. They couldn't believe what Owen had just done. Owen raised his hands and approached Blue. "Put 12 amps into these animals, they're never going to trust me again." Hoskins watched, fascinated. "Stand down, Blue," Owen ordered. "Stand down, girl." Delta snapped her jaws. "Hey! What'd I just say?" Blue snapped at Delta, bringing her back into line. Owen stepped forward, within inches of Blue, and signalled to the Raptors with the other hand. They backed off. "Open the gate," Owen said without taking his eyes off the velociraptors. When the handlers hesitated, the guy who'd fallen in the pen yelled, "Open the gate!" The heavy gate opened. The young handler slid out beneath it. Owen slowly backed up and rolled under the gate as it fell shut. Owen coughed on the dust. Barry offered him his hand. "You're crazy. You know that?" Once he was standing, Owen extended a hand to the young guy and lifted him off of the ground. "You're new, huh? Ever wonder why there was a job opening?" The young guy's eyes widened. "And never stand with your back to the cage," Owen added. The young guy looked over his shoulder and saw Charlie, the raptor, right on the other side of the bars, with her mouth wide open. In the park's Gentle Giants petting zoo, Gray snapped pictures of a young Triceratops. Zack shook his head. "This place is for little kids." "Yeah, I know," Gray said. "Want to go on the spinning dinosaur eggs?" Shaking his head, Zack looked over to Zara, talking on her cell phone. She was paying no attention to the brothers. Zack got a glint in his eye. "Scatter," he said to Gray. "Huh? Run! Go!" The two brothers raced out of the petting zoo, ditching Zara. She was so busy talking on her phone she didn't even notice. On Main Street, the boys waved through the crowd. Zack checked back over his shoulder. Gray spotted a massive paddock and ran toward it. "T-Rex! T-Rex! T-Rex!" Inside the T-Rex kingdom, the boys saw a grove of redwood trees and a live goat on a platform. They made their way into the fake fallen tree where tourists were waiting to see the T-Rex. A park employee, high in a crow's nest, cracked a flare and tossed it at the goat, hoping to attract the T-Rex's attention. It worked. Suddenly the enormous T-Rex burst out of the grove of redwoods, grabbed the goat, and devoured it. Gray felt sorry for the goat, but he loved seeing the T-Rex. This was more like it. Owen returned to the simple wooden bungalow he'd built in a corner of the lagoon. The bungalow was attached to a silver Airstream camper with solar panels. He got to work on his vintage motorcycle, trying to put Hoskins and his ideas about dinosaur weapons out of his mind. But his solitude didn't last long. A Mercedes drove toward his place, kicking up dust. "What'll they want now?" he wondered. Claire got out of the car. She strode across the uneven ground in her high heels. "Mr. Grady, can I have a moment? I need you to come and take a look at something." Owen looked puzzled. "Why are you calling me Mr. Grady?" "Owen," Claire said reluctantly, "we have a dinosaur, a new species we've made." Owen raised his eyebrows. "You just went and made a new dinosaur?" "Yes, that's kind of what we do here," Claire said, exasperated. "The exhibit opens to the public in 3 weeks. Mr. Masrani wanted me to consult with you." Owen kept working on his motorcycle. He tossed a loose bolt in Claire's direction. She jumped away when it hit the ground near her. "Why me?" Owen asked. Claire was wondering the same thing. But she said, "I guess Mr. Masrani thinks since you're able to control the raptors, you might be able to incite us into this new asset." "Asset?" Owen said, sneering, as he wiped grease off his hands. "You're in charge of all the animals. You don't even act like they're alive." "I'm fully aware that they're alive," Claire said coldly. "They're not just numbers on a spreadsheet," Owen continued. "You may have made them in a test tube, but they don't know that." Claire didn't like being lectured by this animal trainer. She turned to walk back to her car but stumbled in her high heels. Owen called her. "You might want to change your shirt," she said to him, wrinkling her nose. "They're very sensitive to smell." She pulled free of his grasp and strode back to her car. On the back of her suit were palm prints from Owen's greasy hands. Shaking his head, Owen followed her. Chapter 7. From the T-Rex paddock, Gray and Zack had hurried to see the Mosasaurus feeding show in the lagoon. They made their way past droves of tourists, looking for 2 empty seats in the bleachers along the water's edge. Over a loudspeaker, an announcer was saying, "The Mosasaurus is thought to have hunted near the surface of the water, where it preyed on animals it could sink its teeth into. Turtles, large fish, even smaller mosasaurs." But the crowd wasn't really listening. Their attention was fixed on a huge shark suspended in the air on a cable. The shark carcass was moving into position over the centre of the lagoon. The shark was a snack. "Okay, folks, let's see if she's still hungry after all the eating today," the announcer said in a cheerful voice. "She's a little shy, so be nice and give her a hand when she comes out." Zack stared at the phone, texting. Gray tapped his arm. "Zack! Mosasaurus, Zack!" An enormous swell formed in the water. The crowd rose to their feet. Zack looked at the photo of his girlfriend holding a "Miss You" sign. "Zack!" Gray said instantly. "You're missing it!" Zack looked up through a forest of raised cell phones just in time to see the Mosasaurus exploded straight up out of the water. It grabbed the shark in its massive jaws. The crowd gasped. The huge aquatic reptile crashed back into the water, soaking the crowd with a gigantic wave. People screamed and laughed. Zack and Gray looked at each other in disbelief. Then they burst into laughter. "It was about 50 feet long," Gray shouted. The bleachers automatically lowered so the audience could see the Mosasaurus under the water, devouring the shark. It finished eating in only a few terrible gulps. With a whip of its tail, the beast disappeared into the dark blue depths. "That," Zack admitted, "was pretty good." "It had 88 teeth," Gray said. Zack laughed. He stuck his phone into his pocket. "Want to see something else cool?" At the Indominus Rex paddock, Owen stared out of the window of the observation tower. "What's this hybrid dinosaur made of?" "The base genome is T-Rex," Claire said. "The rest is classified." "You made a dinosaur you don't even know what it is?" "I don't know the exact genetic makeup. The lab delivers finished assets, and we show them off to the public." She pressed the intercom button. "Can't we drop a steer, please?" Owen squinted out the window, still not seeing the Indominus. "How long has the animal been in here?" "Never seen anything outside these walls." Claire raised one corner of her mouth. "We can't exactly take it for a walk." Owen looked up at the cable system, lowering the steer into the Indominus's paddock. "And you feed it with that?" Thunk! A slab of raw beef dropped to the ground. No animal emerged. "Is there a problem with our methods?" Claire asked. Owen cocked his head. Animal raised in isolation without parents isn't always the most functional. Your raptors were born in captivity, Claire countered. Yet we're siblings. They learn social skills, and I imprint on them at birth. There's trust. The only positive relationship this animal has is with that crane, he said, pointing up. At least she knows that means food. Claire looked skeptical. So she needs a friend? We should schedule playdates, that sort of thing? Owen ran his hand along the claw marks of the glass. Probably not a good idea. Claire tapped her finger on the glass anxiously. Where is it? We were just here. It was just here. In a back corner, the paddock supervisor looked up from a magazine. He checked the infrared monitors, but didn't see the red outline of the Indominus. Oh boy, he muttered. Claire turned to him. What? What are you saying? It doesn't make sense, the supervisor said. The doors haven't been opened in weeks. Owen looked at the inside of the paddock door through the window. Were those claw marks always there? Claire looked. The door was scratched with long claw marks as if something had climbed up the door. You think... Oh, God. She hurried towards the stairs, saying, She had an implant in her neck. I can track it from the control room. She raced downstairs to her car, leaving Owen behind. As she drove to the control centre, Claire called on her cell phone. We have an asset out of containment. Put ACU on alert. This is not a drill.